Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Grisham. We are talking again about Dénia, about Taifa of Dénia, everything Muslim, Oriental. That's why I'm dressed to the occasion. I've traveled to quite a few countries of the East where Muslim religion is practiced, where people are different. So for me, well, this, for instance, comes in from Kazakhstan. This from Uzbekistan, although it's got some Christian motifs. Well, I've got a camel here, beautiful camel, whom I bought in Turkmenistan. I also loved my visits to Iran, Tehran, to Morocco. So, well, personally, really, for me, the Orient, the countries of Quran are not something, well, far away, but also I do understand that the place we live in, Dénia, used to be part of this world, of the Muslim world, of the current world. Not only those years, 1010 to 1076, were actually the highest point in the whole of 2.6 thousand years of Dénia's history. So we're going to talk a little bit about those times. And first, we will speak about, just remind ourselves about the conquista and reconquista of by Muslims of Al-Andalus, as our part of the world was called. We remember that the conquista started in 711, lasted till 713. Then in 756, one single state in Còrdoba was founded. And first it was Emirate, then it was Caliphate. It existed till 1010 or 1031. But in 1010, independent taifas. Taifas are really kingdoms or even principalities. Taifa is actually a banda. Banda means party, political party, or part of the world, or part of the country. So Taifa started arriving in 1010, starting with Dénia's Taifa. They lasted till 1019. Then almighty Almoravides and then Almohades came over. They were defeated in 1212 and started withdrawing in 1220s. 1220s, 1250s, the big push by Castile and Aragon. And really then only small part of Al-Andalus was remaining Muslim. It was the kingdom of Navarra, the kingdom of Granada, of course, lasting till 1492. But we're more interested in Dénia. So Taif in Dénia was the first in the whole peninsula. Why it happened? Let's speak about it. How, for instance, the Grail Cup came over to Spain, one of the Grail Cups, and so forth. So we're beginning in 1010. Why Dénia was important? Have a look. This is the map of different taifas. The biggest number of them were 39. 39 little independent kingdoms. And Taifa of Dénia in 1040s, 1030s included Dénia and Balearic Islands. So it was located very, very strategically on the peninsula of Al-Andalus. Also, here, Dénia had a mountain just behind me, and the center of Dénia, the castle of Dénia, was located among the marshes, marhals, they're still called now. So it was like an island, an impregnable fortress. And the almighty ruler of Còrdoba Caliphate, Al-Abdurrahman III, in 90s, he came here in 1918, he recognized the importance of Dénia and he ordered to build here a castle and a shipyard. Of course, because Dénia was one of the most important ports in the eastern part of Al-Andalus. We remember that eastern part of the peninsula is now called Levante, and in Arab times it used to be called Al-Sharq, the east. And we had Via Augusta here, the Roman road, which still existed in the 11th century and which was really the central part of Al-Andalus. And it was very important that Dénia was sitting next to it, not on the road, but not too far from the road. And we have spoken also about Sakaliba. Sakaliba were slaves, but very highly located in the hierarchy, probably of Slavonic origin, but probably of Eastern and Western European origin. They were saying that some Sakalibas were Basques, some were Italians, and so forth. It so happened that most of the taifas in our part of Al-Andalus were established by excuse me, Sakhalibas. And these were the taifas of Tartosa, very important one, where the river Ebra is now, meeting the sea, taifas of Saragossa, Valencia, Baleares, Tudmir, and of Dénia. And again, taifa is a group of people. Now, what do we have next? 1010, the start of our taifa. First it was big, but then some other taifas started being established. And by 1014, it was really, really tiny, but it had Mujahid. Mujahid was the king, the Amir of our first taifa. What he did? First, he decided to win over Balearic Islands. All right, we'll start with Mujahid's biography. Here we are. Sorry, we missed him. Now we're coming back to Mujahid's biography. First of all, he's not just Mujahid. Mujahid ibn Abdul Dala al-Amiri. Al-Amiri. His surname was Amiri, which was also the surname of the almighty Al-Mansur. It was at the court of Al-Mansur that Mujahid had his meteoritic career. He died in 1045. Prior to setting up the Taifa of Dénia, he was a governor, a valley of Dénia and or Baleares in 1002, 1009. And in March 1009, he took control of Dénia. In July 1010, easy to remember, July 1010, he established the first independent Taifa within Al-Andalus, because the Caliphate of Còrdoba was actually crumbling. Then he was a very cunning person, Mujahid. So in order to give some legal basis, legal foundation for his creation of an independent Taifa, he found the Prophet Muhammad's descendant, Mr. Al-Mustansir, and declared him Caliph of Dénia. Simultaneously, his competitor in Almeria did the same. So there turned out to be 3 caliphs in Córdoba, in Dénia, and in Almeria. And by the way, this Al-Mu'aiti, the new so-called Caliph of Dénia, was a very learned person. He was a Quran interpreter, and Mujahid declared himself as Hajib, the head of his staff. Mujahid, he was a very cultured person. He loved literature, he loved sciences, he protected poets, and so simultaneously being a military leader, a caballero, he was also an expert in Arabic philology. He even wrote a now lost work on Arud. We've got a little bird here who will be helping us to speak. All right, so a learned linguist actually created the first and the only independent kingdom on our territory, Emirate, Taifa of Dénia. That's correct. And sometimes, Dénia of 11th century, it's called a Renaissance republic, where the word was more important than stone. Probably because of that, there's not too many traces of the Muslim period here. So what are the achievements of Mujahid? He created a powerful fleet. He conquered the Balearic Islands, tried to conquer Sardinia, but failed. He surrounded himself with philosophers and poets. That was the first Taifa to actually start minting its own coin, and he laid the foundations for prosperity of Dénia for 60 years. How territorically it all happened. First, Dénia was tiny here. Then, 1014, 1015, Mujahid made and actually achieved the conquista of Balearic Islands. Technically, probably he was their governor prior to that. He had been their governor prior to that. So there wasn't really a war, but Balearic Islands were so important from the strategic point of view, and they became part of the Taifa of Dénia. 1015, 1016, Mujahid creates what's called marine cavalry. He puts 1,000 riders, caballeros, on 125 ships and goes against Christians. First, he hits Sardinia, he occupies Sardinia, part of it, and then he starts fighting in the proper Italy. Well, whatever it was at that time, Liguria, of course. And that's the famous legend was that he sent to Pope Benedict VIII a sack of chestnuts, meaning that's how many Muslim warriors, brave warriors I have at my disposal. And the Pope returned him a sack of millet, saying that how many Christian soldiers and warriors and knights I have under my command. And finally, unfortunately, in 1016, Mujahid's troops were defeated. Actually, his fleet was defeated by joint Pisan-Genovese fleet. All his family were captured. Mujahid escaped, but all his family were captured. And his son, Ali, was kept in captivity for 10 or 16 years at the court of Emperor Henry II. And it's important, when gradually, Mujahid bought them off, paid a ransom, of course, and had them returned to Dénia, his mother and his aunt didn't want to return to Dénia from Sardinia, actually proving they were Christian. And that also our Mujahid, our hero, the first king of independent Taifa of Dénia, was most probably a Christian as well. Anyway, what followed was the fact that how we're moving, we are progressing. By the way, I haven't switched on the interpretation. Oh, apologize. I'm not going to do it again, but anyway, here we are. That's a little bit bigger picture. All right, anyway. Then, having become the master of the seas, Mujahid decided to move on land. What happened was, at those times and now, the Via Augusta, the old Roman road, was behind the mountains. By the way, about 50 kilometers. The nearest place was Bocairent, which is 92 kilometers from Dénia driving. I've been driving there quite a few times. And this road goes, relatively, it's not a mountain road. We have mountains here and mountains here. And that's a valley, very nice valley. And so first, Mujahid occupied Bocairent, all right, which is 92 kilometers from Dénia. And later, he occupied Baeza. Now Baeza is 400 kilometers. It's much nearer there, am I in Baeza? And Baeza is much nearer to Còrdoba than it is to Dénia. So Dénia's land territory became quite big. What was also important, Mujahid got himself the upper part of Segura River. And that was very important to get wood for shipbuilding. So that was quite a big achievement. So by 1030s, Mujahid became the master of the seas and the master of the land, dominating via Augusta and via Balearic Islands, dominating the sea trade in Mediterranean. He died, unfortunately, in 1045. His son, Ali Iqbal ad-Dawla, which means prosperity of the state, he became the second Amir of Dénia, the second king of Dénia. He was the king for 30 odd years, 1045, 1076. They're saying he was more emergent than a warrior because he spent so much time abroad. He was speaking Arab with an Italian accent, Ajam. And his brother, Hassan, he just had one brother. His brother Hassan attempted to have him assassinated, failed, luckily. And Ali Iqbal's kingdom prospered for 30 years. It was a kingdom, very wise kingdom of three religions, where people of Islam, Jewish people, and Christian people prospered and lived together. Moreover, what Ali did, he invited Christian priests over from Barcelona, together with the Saint Oils. And as far as his business acumen, the most famous business deal was in 1054-5, when Egypt and the Fatimid caliphs was having huge and very sad famine. And what Ali did was sending a full ship full of grain to Egypt, and the Caliph of Egypt returned the same ship full of very, very precious things, probably including the cup of grail. Well, running along the history, in March 1076, the Taifa of Dénia came no more. It was it actually succumbed to the growing Taifa of Zaragoza. Very stupidly, there's quite a, well, a joke of history, but let's not sort of tell it over. It didn't help very much the Zaragoza kingdom, because in 1090s anyway, Almoravids came from Morocco and conquered the whole Muslim part of the peninsula. The Caliphs, so-called Caliphs, which is actually probably the Grail Cup. The most important, the most famous Grail Cup actually stands in the Cathedral of Valencia. It has been there from 1437. And its movements are known for the last 1,500 years, from Jerusalem to Italy to Aragon, where it was hidden in the mountains of Aragon for about 900 years. And we have a very interesting route there. If you have time, please come over, go there, where at some point, at different points of history, the cup, the Calice, was hidden. By the way, in Valencia, they never call it Grail Cup. They only call it Santa Calice, the Saint Cup. Then there is another pretender to the name of Grail Cup. And this is Calice de Doña Urraca, which is kept in Leon, in monastery. And you know what? About 4 or 5 years ago, they appeared a book which proved that this is the famous Grail Cup, and it came there from Egypt via Dénia, that famous business deal of Ali Iqbal, our second Amir. Well, question, no question. We actually saw the original of this cup in Leon about 5 years ago. Now they replace it with a copy because they're thinking that it's very, very, very precious. It is beautiful as well. Anyway, Dénia. Dénia had a brilliant galaxy of philosophers, scientists, poets. Up there, about 3 kilometers from here, we have the street called after Abus Salt, who was, again, called Leonardo da Vinci of Dénia. He was only born here, then he traveled all over Muslim world. He was born here in 1066 to 67, Abu Salt ibn Umayyah al-Dani. He was a polymath. He wrote on pharmacology, geometry, physics, math, astronomy. He was a poet, he was a musician, and in the West, he was known as Al-Buzaleh. So this polymath, Abu Salt, was born in Dénia under the second king of our Taifa. There was quite a few other poets, philosophers, linguists who spent their time. For instance, if you look at Al-Dani, he wrote 120 books. Would you imagine? 120 books. So a brilliant galaxy existed here at the court. They were minting their own coins. It's interesting that Mujahid, the first king, the first Emir, didn't mint too many coins. Hassan, his son, who rebelled against his brother Ali, actually had some coins minted. Then it was Ali Iqbal Agdaullah. And then there were 2 smaller taifas, much less important later on in the history. Anyway, the city of Dénia of the time of Muslims, huge, enormous. See these 5 parts. The upper part of the castle, the lower part of the castle, the town as such, the suburb, and the shipyard. Let's go along them. The castle, 4 hectares, including the upper part, the citadel called the Al-Kasaba. Its lower part is the economic cradle, the Al-Bakara. And the walls actually protect these 2 parts together, Al-Kasaba, Al-Bakara. Then we go lower, the Medina, 24 hectares, the actual walled Muslim town, twice the size of Muslim town, of Christian town in the next 6 centuries. Big suburb, Ar-Rabal, called also Forti. And then the shipyard, Atarathana. Also, there was a maritime suburb, and also not far away from here, on San Nicholas Hill, there was a Rabita, which is a monastery, a Muslim monastery. So when you look from the, from the Castle Hill, the San Nicholas Hill is here. That's where the monastery was. Then this place was occupied by the shipyard. Then Forti, the suburb. Then this is all Medina, the actual city or town of Dénia. And we are standing on the Castle Hill, which we know included Al-Kasaba and Rabat. Al-Kasaba, Al-Bakar, Medina, Raval, and so forth. we have a brilliant author, Mr. Josep Ivars, wrote a quite a big number of books on the history of Dénia, and he's the one who created maps of Dénia in each individual century between 12th and 20th, showing actually the borders as compared with the today's streets, and that's very important. And we have to stress, see, this is the size of Muslim town. The Christian town would reach this size somewhere at the beginning or middle of 20th century. So Christians needed 800 years to reach the size of the Muslim town in 1240. And here again, we're looking at Mount Mongo, and the town. What we did, we, meaning the family of Grecians, ourselves, me, my wife Katya, and my daughter Polly, we decided to look at the map of the Castle of Dénia from the chronological point of view. And we colored in different colors, different centuries. So Arab constructions, they begin with 10 because they were all starting from the year 1000 onwards. There's not too many yellow structures, as you can see. Red structures are starting from 14, which is 15th century, 1400, then the green one and the blue ones. Now we're only looking at the Arab structures, and we have gates here, which are the main gates to the castle, gates up there in the bastion, and a couple of towers. This is a big tower, and that's a smaller tower, all right? So from Arab, we can see that from Arab times, from this fantastic Taifa of Dénia, too many things were left in stone. And that was the motto of Dénia, of the Muslim Dénia. Palabras más importante que piedras. The words were more important than bricks. So we can see my wife Katya under the main gates to the castle, then the gates at the bastion, still Arab. What Arabs were doing and Muslims all together with bricks, they loved it, and they knew how to work it. And that's the other side of the castle hill, and you can see here were the gates into the one of Arabs, another Arab suburb. And now we are talking about the recent development. We have Chief Architect of Dénia, Senor Josep Antonio Gisbert, and together with his colleague, Silvia Ruiz, they found the foundations, of course, not the whole houses, but foundation of 7 hotels in Dénia. They're saying that altogether in Muslim Dénia, there were about 20 hotels, more than in Sevilla, more than in Valencia, more than in Còrdoba, because Dénia was an international city. And the hotels were quite big. Some of them would reach 400 square meters, i.e. 4,000 square feet. There would be a 2-story structure with a patio in the center. And there's a very famous story, very funny story, which Mr. Gisberg is telling about Rey Lobo, Wolf King of 1149, who was governor of Dénia, who came to Genoa and said that, look, Genovese, please have one of these hotels, which we called funduqs. Please have one of those funduqs in your own usage, exclusive. Moreover, if you confirm this deal you're having, you can use hammam free of charge. This is very much like we are very often lured by free spa offers. So the first free spa offer was made by Governor of Dénia to Genoa in 1149. After the Reconquista, most of these lands became agricultural. So they were no longer, inhabited territory, and now they are looking at the foundations of these hotels, funduqs. You can see that even people are now restructuring, showing us how the old Muslim houses looked in Dénia. And what is very important, the mayor's office, together with Mr. Gisberg, started setting up these stands, especially at the part which is called 40, the suburb, where they're showing, telling about the history of Muslim Dénia. And for instance, they're showing the foundation of a house built in 1200. So this would be the oldest house in Dénia altogether. And now we have, of course, in Dénia the holiday, Moors and Christians, Moors and Cristianos, not only in Dénia, all over the Costa, the Costa Blanca, and that's celebrated at different parts of the year. Ours in August, and this is Katin 40. You can have a look at how high the wall of the Muslim suburb was. And we're finishing with two poems of the poets who lived here. Ibn Darray came to die in Dénia in 1030, but he lived here for about 15 years. So in 1014, when Mujahid was collecting his ships to conquer first Baleares and then Sardinia, Ibn Darray wrote about the fleet. His ships are like celestial spheres. His archers are the stars, armed to the nines. The abyss of the sea ships help to cross. The waves get tired and the heavy weight. I'm sorry, this is my translation. I can't say that it's absolutely perfect, but anyway, you can read also the Spanish text up there. And the second poet, Ibn al-Labbana, was one of the most famous poets in the whole of poets, the whole of Muslim world, not only Al-Andalus, but Muslim world. And he was born in 1067, not in Dénia, but what's now called Jesus Pobre, just behind the mountain from here. At that time, it was called Benissa Devi. And he was born here in 1067, then immigrated to Mallorca, then went all over the Arab world. And look at how he's describing the Muslims leaving one of the islands. And it sounds like a goodbye to Muslim Dénia. The ships depart, being chased by weeping. They seem like a slow caravan, led by their driver and his song. As so many tears fall into water, as so many broken hearts carry away those tearless galleys. Thank you very much for your attention. We'll continue with Christian Reconquista quite soon. Goodbye. 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 Bye go. Goodbye. Yeah.